The massive space station floated silently in the void between stars, its metallic surface gleaming under distant starlight. Inside, thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered for the most important meeting of the year. The station was called Nexus Prime, and today it hosted the annual Galactic Security Summit. Admiral Korthak stepped forward to address the crowd. His body was made of living crystal that sparkled and shifted colors as he moved. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices that allowed every species to understand him perfectly. "We are here to discuss the laws that keep peace in our galaxy," Korthak announced. "There are many rules, but one stands above all others. No one must ever attack or interfere with Earth's deep space fleet." In the human section, Ambassador Rebecca Williams sat quietly with her small team. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes. Around her, representatives from 4 to 6 other alien species filled the enormous chamber. Some looked like giant insects, others resembled walking trees, and a few appeared to be made entirely of energy. Most of these beings looked at the humans with either boredom or mild disgust. To them, humans were newcomers who had only been traveling between stars for 400 years. This was nothing compared to civilizations that had existed for millions of years. But not everyone shared this view. In the far corner, the ancient Vorthan Emperor sat in his life support suit. His species had ruled parts of the galaxy for 50,000 years. When he looked at the humans, his old eyes showed something different. Fear. Next to him, representatives from the Nexus Collective watched the humans with equal wariness. These beings were part machine, part flesh, and they had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving. Commander Drax of the Corellian war machine suddenly stood up. He was a massive creature covered in natural armor, with scars from countless battles marking his shell. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through pure military might, and they respected only strength. "This rule is stupid," Drax shouted, his voice booming through the chamber. "Why should we fear these weak humans? Their entire military is barely 300 ships scattered across space. We have fleets 10 times larger than their entire navy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the younger civilizations. Many had never seen humans fight and wondered why such a small, seemingly primitive species received special treatment. A spider-like being from the Arachne Collective clicked its mandibles in agreement. "My species controls 40 systems. The humans control only 12. Why do they deserve this protection?" "Their technology is centuries behind ours," added a floating gas creature from the Nebula Consortium. "Their weapons are simple kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams. Children's toys compared to our quantum disruptors." Ambassador Williams remained calm throughout these accusations. She had heard them before. Her fingers drummed silently on the table as she waited for the right moment to speak. Commander Drax pointed directly at her. "Explain to us, human, why your pathetic fleet deserves such respect. What makes you so special?" The chamber fell silent. Every eye, optical sensor, and consciousness turned toward the small human woman. She stood slowly, her movements graceful despite her age. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried clearly through the vast space. "Commander Drax, some lessons in this universe can only be learned through experience. We sincerely hope that you and your people never have to learn this particular lesson." "That's not an answer." Drax slammed his armored fist on his table, creating a loud crash that echoed through the chamber. "Give us facts. Show us proof. Why should warriors like us bow to farmers and merchants like you?" The ancient Vorthan Emperor shifted uncomfortably in his biosuit. His species had historical records that went back tens of thousands of years. He remembered stories his grandfather had told him, stories about the first contact between his people and humanity. Those memories still gave him nightmares. Rebecca Williams smiled, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. "The rule exists for your protection, not ours. It has kept the galaxy peaceful for over 2 centuries. "Protection." Drax laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Protection from what? Your tiny fleet couldn't defeat a single one of our battle groups." "You're absolutely right," Williams agreed. "Our deep space fleet couldn't defeat your military in open combat. They're not designed for that purpose." This admission surprised many in the chamber. If the humans were admitting their weakness, why did the rule exist at all? An elderly being from the Twilight Empire leaned forward. "Then why do the ancient species fear you? What aren't you telling us?" Williams looked toward the Vorthan Emperor, who had remained silent throughout the debate. Perhaps His Imperial Majesty would like to share some history with the younger civilizations. The Emperor's life support systems hissed as he shifted position. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone heard every word. Some knowledge comes at too high a price. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Riddles and mysteries. Drax exploded. I'm tired of ancient fears and outdated superstitions. The Corellian war machine has never backed down from any fight, and we won't start now. The chamber erupted in noise as younger species voiced their agreement. They had grown up in an era of peace and had never witnessed the true reason for humanity's protected status. Ambassador Williams watched the chaos with sad eyes. She had seen this pattern before in smaller councils. Young civilizations always thought they knew better than their elders. When the noise finally died down, she spoke one last time. The choice is yours to make. But remember this moment when you're deciding. Remember that you were warned. As the summit ended and delegates began filing out, the Vorthan Emperor approached the human section. His ancient eyes met William's gaze, and he spoke in a voice filled with sorrow. They won't listen, will they? Williams shook her head. The young never do. They have to learn for themselves. May the galaxy forgive us for what's coming. 3 months had passed since the heated summit at Nexus Prime. Commander Drax had spent those months visiting allies and building support for his plan. He traveled to 6 different worlds, speaking to military leaders who shared his frustration with the mysterious human protection rule. The spider-like Arachne collective agreed to join him first. Their queen had always resented taking orders from weaker species. Next came the gas beings from the Nebula Consortium, who controlled vast fleets of energy-based warships. 4 other civilizations followed, each bringing their own reasons for wanting to challenge human authority. Together, they formed what Drax called the Liberation Alliance. Their goal was simple: prove that humans were not special by defeating their deep space fleet in open combat. Drax chose his target carefully. The human mining colony on Kepler 442b was far from Earth, defended by only 3 ships. It was perfect for demonstrating human weakness without risking too much of his own forces. The colony sat on a planet rich in rare metals that humans used to build their starships. About 50,000 people lived there, mostly miners and their families. The defensive fleet consisted of 1 light cruiser called the UES Defiant and 2 smaller escort ships. Captain Michael Thompson commanded the Defiant. He was a quiet man in his 40s with gray hair and steady hands. His crew of 200 had served together for 5 years, and they trusted him completely. When long-range sensors detected the approaching enemy fleet, Thompson remained calm. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" he asked his sensor officer. 200 confirmed contacts, sir. Mixed classes, but all military vessels. Thompson nodded slowly. He had known this day might come eventually. Every captain in the Deep Space Fleet understood their true purpose, though they rarely spoke of it aloud. Send a message to the colony. Tell them to begin emergency evacuation procedures. Then signal Earth Command with a Priority Alpha transmission. His communications officer looked surprised. Priority Alpha messages were reserved for the most extreme emergencies. They had never used that code before. The enemy fleet arrived in the system like a storm cloud blotting out the stars. 200 warships of various designs spread into attack formation. The largest was Admiral Vorthak's flagship, a massive dreadnought from the Corellian war machine. Admiral Vorthak opened communications on all frequencies. His scarred face appeared on screens throughout the system, including those in the human colony below. "Humans of Kepler 442b, I am Admiral Vorthak of the Liberation Alliance. Your protection under galactic law ends today. Surrender your ships and colony, and you will be treated as prisoners of war. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Captain Thompson activated his own communications system. His calm voice reached every ship in the enemy fleet. "Admiral Vorthak, this is Captain Thompson of the UES Defiant. You are in violation of galactic law by threatening this colony and our ships. You have 1 chance to withdraw your forces. We will not ask twice." Laughter erupted from the Corellian bridge crew. The sound echoed through their communications as they shared the joke with other ships in their fleet. 3 small human vessels threatening 200 warships seemed like the ultimate display of human arrogance. "Captain Thompson," Vorthak replied, still chuckling, "you have courage, I'll give you that. But courage cannot stop plasma cannons. Last chance to surrender." Thompson looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They all knew what was about to happen. None of them looked afraid. "All hands, this is the captain," Thompson announced over the ship's internal communications. "Battle stations. Remember your duty." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Weapons powered up, shields activated, and damage control teams took their positions. On the other two escort ships, similar preparations were taking place. When the human ships refused to surrender, Admiral Vorthak gave the order to attack. The space around Kepler 442b exploded into light and fire as 200 alien warships opened fire on 3 human vessels. The battle was magnificent and terrible at the same time. The human ships fought like cornered wolves, their weapons blazing continuously as they tried to protect the evacuation shuttles launching from the colony below. The Defiant spun and weaved through enemy fire, its guns picking off smaller enemy vessels with precise shots. But the outcome was never in doubt. The human ships were simply outnumbered by impossible odds. One by one, enemy weapons found their targets. The first escort ship exploded in a ball of fire after taking direct hits from 12 enemy vessels. The second escort lasted longer, but eventually succumbed to concentrated fire from the alien fleet. The Defiant fought alone for another hour, its hull scarred and burning from dozens of hits. Captain Thompson's bridge was filled with smoke, and half his crew lay dead at their posts. Still, he refused to surrender. As his ship's main power failed and systems shut down one by one, Thompson managed to send one final message toward Earth. It was just a few words, transmitted on a frequency known only to Earth Command. Shepard Protocol initiated, Colony 77 Alpha lost, Kepler 442b, Corellian Alliance, full response authorized. The message sent, Thompson sat back in his captain's chair and waited. The enemy ships closed in around his crippled vessel, their weapons charging for the killing blow. The Defiant died as she had lived, with honor. Her final explosion lit up the system like a small star, visible even from the planet's surface where the last evacuation shuttles were escaping. Admiral Vorthak watched the human ships burn with satisfaction. Around him, his bridge crew cheered their victory. Similar celebrations were taking place throughout the Liberation Alliance fleet. Send word to the galaxy, Vorthak ordered. The myth of human military power has been shattered. Earth's deep space fleet bleeds and dies like any other. As his ships moved to occupy the colony, Vorthak felt proud of what he had accomplished. He had proven that humans were not special, that their protection under galactic law was based on nothing but ancient superstition. He had no idea that his message of victory would be the last transmission his civilization would ever send to the outside galaxy. The real war was just beginning. Fleet Admiral David Kane sat in his office high above the Pacific Ocean, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. The view from Earth's Deep Space Command was beautiful, but Kane barely noticed it. His attention was focused on the message that had just arrived from the outer colonies. The transmission was short and coded, but Kane understood every word perfectly. He had been waiting for this message for 30 years, hoping he would never receive it. Now that it had come, he felt a mixture of sadness and cold determination. Shepard Protocol initiated, Colony 77 Alpha lost, Kepler 442b, Corellian Alliance, full response authorized. Kane pressed a button on his desk, and Lieutenant Commander Jennifer Hayes entered the office immediately. She was a young officer with sharp eyes and steady nerves, one of the few people who knew the truth about Earth's real military capabilities. "Sir?" Hayes asked, noting the grim expression on her admiral's face. Kane handed her the message without speaking. Hayes read it quickly, her face growing pale as she understood what it meant. "They actually did it," she whispered. "Someone actually attacked the Deep Space Fleet." "Captain Thompson and his crew are dead," Kane said quietly. "The colony has fallen. The Corellians and their allies think they've won a great victory." Hayes looked confused. "But sir, they have won. The Defiant and her escorts were destroyed. Our outer defenses have been breached for the first time in centuries." Kane stood up and walked to the large window overlooking the ocean. Far below, waves crashed against the rocky coast, their endless rhythm unchanged by human wars or alien threats. "Jennifer, do you know what the Deep Space Fleet really is?" Kane asked without turning around. "Sir? It's our primary military force. Our main defense against hostile aliens." Kane shook his head slowly. "That's what we tell everyone, including most of our own people. But the Deep Space Fleet isn't our military, Jennifer. It's our early warning system." Hayes stared at her admiral in shock. "I don't understand." "The Deep Space Fleet exists for one purpose only," Kane explained. "To die well, and in dying, to send us a message. Every captain in that fleet knows their real mission. They're not supposed to win battles. They're supposed to tell us when someone is foolish enough to start a war with humanity." Kane turned away from the window and walked to a secure terminal built into his desk. He placed his palm on a scanner and spoke clearly into a microphone. "Admiral David Kane, authorization code Shepard 77 Alpha. Activate the awakening protocol. The computer's artificial voice responded immediately. Awakening protocol confirmed. Please provide secondary authorization. Hayes watched in amazement as Kane removed a key from around his neck and inserted it into a slot in the terminal. Secondary authorization confirmed. Admiral, are you certain you wish to proceed? This action cannot be undone. I'm certain, Kane said firmly. Wake them up. Throughout human space, in star systems that most people had never heard of, massive installations that appeared to be simple asteroid mining facilities began to change. These installations had been built in secret over 3 centuries ago, disguised as commercial operations to avoid attracting attention. Deep inside each facility, ancient machines came to life for the first time in decades. Computer systems that had been sleeping in standby mode activated their primary programs. Fusion reactors that had been barely ticking over suddenly roared to full power. The asteroid mining equipment was just a shell, a disguise hiding something far more dangerous underneath. As the outer layers retracted, the true nature of these installations became clear. They weren't mining facilities at all. They were shipyards. Inside each hidden dock, a warship began to wake up. These vessels had been built using technology that humanity had acquired 300 years ago, during their first and only encounter with a truly hostile alien civilization. That enemy had been destroyed completely, but not before humans had learned valuable lessons about space warfare. The ships were sleek and deadly, designed not for exploration or trade but for one purpose only: total war. They were larger than anything currently flying in galactic space, armed with weapons that most civilizations had never imagined, and crewed by soldiers who had been training for this moment their entire lives. In the largest hidden facility, orbiting a dead star in an unnamed system, the flagship of the real Earth fleet came online. The UES Retribution was more than just a warship. It was a mobile command center, a factory, and a statement of human resolve all built into one massive vessel. Admiral Kane arrived on the Retribution's bridge 12 hours later, having traveled there by the fastest courier ship available. As he took his command chair, he looked around at the bridge crew who had been waiting for this moment for decades. "Report," Kane ordered. "All fleets report ready for deployment, sir," came the immediate response from his tactical officer. 10,437 vessels standing by across 47 systems. Kane felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. In the next few hours, he would either save human civilization or destroy it completely. There was no middle ground in what was about to happen. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime," Kane ordered. When the communication link was established, Kane looked directly into the camera that would carry his image across the galaxy. His voice was calm but carried an undertone of terrible promise. "Members of the Galactic Council, this is Fleet Admiral David Kane of the Earth Defense Force. The Corellian Alliance has violated galactic law by attacking our deep space fleet and destroying a civilian colony. You were warned that this day might come." Kane paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of light-years. "The deep space fleet was your protection from us, not ours from you. The Corellian Alliance has chosen to learn why the protection rule existed. May God have mercy on their souls, because we will not." Admiral Vorthak stood in the command center of the captured human colony, feeling proud of his victory. Around him, Corellian soldiers were setting up communication equipment and defensive positions. The battle had been easier than he expected, and now he controlled one of the richest mining operations in human space. "Sir, we're receiving congratulations from our allies across the galaxy," reported his communications officer. "The Liberation Alliance is celebrating our success." Vorthak smiled beneath his armored helmet. For the first time in galactic history, someone had successfully attacked Earth's famous deep space fleet and lived to tell about it. The myth of human power was finally broken. "Send word to all our worlds," Vorthak ordered. "Begin Phase 2 of the operation. If the humans want their colony back, they'll have to come and take it." But as Vorthak celebrated, his sensor operator suddenly looked confused. The young Corellian stared at his instruments, tapping the screen as if something was wrong with the equipment. "Sir, I'm getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors." "What kind of readings?" Vorthak asked, only half interested. He was more focused on planning how to defend the colony against any human counterattack. "I'm not sure, sir. It looks like ships. Lots of ships. But they're not showing up on our standard detection grid." Vorthak walked over to look at the sensor display himself. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of contacts were appearing at the edge of the system, materializing out of empty space like ghosts becoming solid. "That's impossible," Vorthak whispered. Our sensors would have detected any fleet approaching the system. But even as he spoke, more contacts appeared. Then more. Within minutes, the tactical display showed over 1,000 unknown vessels entering the Kepler 442b system from multiple directions. "Sir, they're not using any propulsion system we recognize," the sensor operator reported, his voice shaking with fear. "They're just appearing." The truth was that the human ships were using cloaking technology far more advanced than anything the Corellians had ever seen. They had been traveling through hyperspace in complete stealth, invisible to all known detection methods until they chose to reveal themselves. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Kane watched as his fleet took positions around the occupied system. The massive flagship was surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything in the Corellian fleet. "All ships report ready for combat operations," announced his tactical officer. "The enemy has 200 vessels in the system, mostly concentrated around the colony world." Kane nodded calmly. "Signal the fleet. Decloak all vessels simultaneously. I want them to see exactly what they are facing." Across the star system, 10,000 human warships suddenly became visible. They appeared like dark angels emerging from the void, their sleek hulls reflecting starlight as they moved into attack formations. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, built with technology that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. On the colony's surface, Admiral Vorthak watched in horror as his tactical display filled with enemy contacts. The number kept growing until his computer systems couldn't track them all accurately. "How many ships?" he asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "Over 10,000 confirmed contacts, sir," came the terrified reply. "More are still decloaking." Vorthak had commanded fleets for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single massive organism. They didn't appear to be using standard military formations at all, but something far more sophisticated. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the destroyer UES Nemesis, one of the smaller ships in the human fleet. Even her vessel was larger than most Corellian battleships, armed with weapons that could punch through any known armor. "Admiral Vorthak," she transmitted on all frequencies, "you have violated galactic law by attacking Earth's deep space fleet and occupying a human colony. Surrender immediately and your crews will be treated according to the rules of war." Vorthak looked around his command center at the faces of his officers. Some showed fear, others confusion, but many still showed the fighting spirit of the Corellian war machine. His species had never surrendered to anyone, and he wasn't about to start now. "All ships, battle stations," Vorthak ordered. "We've faced impossible odds before and won. These humans may have more ships, but we have the warrior spirit." The Corellian fleet opened fire first, their plasma cannons and missile launchers creating a wall of destruction aimed at the nearest human vessels. For a few seconds, space around Kepler 442b blazed with weapons fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. Then the human ships returned fire, and the battle changed completely. Human weapons were unlike anything the Corellians had ever encountered. Instead of crude energy beams or explosive missiles, they fired projectiles that seemed to bend space itself. These weapons passed through Corellian shields as if they didn't exist, striking hulls with devastating force. The first Corellian ship died within seconds of the human response. Its shields collapsed, its armor melted away, and its reactor exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Then another ship died, and another. Captain Morgan watched the battle from her bridge with professional calm. "Target the command ships first," she ordered. "Leave the smaller vessels for the cruiser squadrons." The Nemesis fired a single shot from her main gun. The projectile covered the distance to its target in less than a second, striking Admiral Vorthak's flagship directly amidships. The massive Corellian dreadnought, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, simply came apart like a toy hit by a sledgehammer. As his ship died around him, Admiral Vorthak managed to send one final message to his homeworld: "They're not like us. They're not like anyone we've ever faced. The weapons, the ships, it's impossible. Run. Run now." The battle lasted 6 hours, but it was really over in the first few minutes. One by one, every ship in the Corellian fleet was either destroyed or disabled. Those that tried to surrender found themselves captured by boarding parties of human soldiers who moved through their ships like unstoppable forces of nature. When the shooting finally stopped, the space around Kepler 442b was filled with debris and the dim glow of cooling metal. Of the 200 Corellian warships that had celebrated victory just hours before, none remained operational. Admiral Kane stood on his bridge, looking out at the aftermath of the battle. But this was just the beginning. The human fleet was already splitting into smaller task forces, each one heading toward a different world controlled by the Liberation Alliance. The Corellians had wanted to test human strength. Now they would learn the true cost of that test. The emergency session at Nexus Prime had been called within hours of the first reports reaching the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species filled the Great Chamber, but the mood was very different from the confident gathering 3 months earlier. Admiral Korthak's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as he read the latest reports. The Corellian homeworld has gone silent. All communication ceased 18 hours ago. Long-range sensors show extensive damage to orbital facilities. Panicked voices rose throughout the chamber. The younger species that had supported Commander Drax were now desperately trying to distance themselves from the Liberation Alliance. But it was too late for second thoughts. "What about the Arachne Collective?" asked a trembling representative from the Nebula Consortium. "Their Queen's Fortress moon was destroyed completely," Korthak replied, his voice hollow. 40 billion Arachne died when the humans cracked it open like an egg. In the human section, Ambassador Rebecca Williams sat quietly with her hands folded. She looked older than she had 3 months ago, as if the weight of recent events had aged her. When the chamber finally fell silent, she stood to address the assembly. "The Earth fleet has completed its primary objectives," Williams announced. "All military forces belonging to the Liberation Alliance have been neutralized. Their leaders are either dead or in custody. Their worlds are under martial law." A representative from the Twilight Empire, his voice shaking, asked the question everyone was thinking: how many died? Williams consulted a tablet before answering. Military casualties among the Alliance forces were approximately 100%. Civilian casualties varied by world, depending on how quickly local governments surrendered. The numbers were staggering. The Corellian war machine, which had existed for over 3,000 years, had been completely destroyed in 72 hours. 6 other civilizations had suffered similar fates, their entire military structures wiped out by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. "This is madness," whispered the representative from the Crystal Hegemony. "How did they do this? Our intelligence report said humans had only 300 ships total." "Your intelligence was correct," Williams replied calmly. "The Deep Space Fleet did have approximately 300 vessels. They're all gone now, destroyed defending our colony." "Then where did the attack fleet come from?" demanded a surviving Arachne noble whose species had lost their homeworld. Williams looked toward the ancient Vorthan Emperor, who had remained silent throughout the emergency session. The old ruler's life support systems hissed as he shifted in his biosuit. "Perhaps His Imperial Majesty would like to explain," Williams suggested. The Emperor's voice was barely audible, but in the deadly quiet chamber, everyone heard his words. 50,000 years ago, my people encountered humanity for the first time. We were younger then, more aggressive. We thought we could conquer their small worlds easily." He paused, lost in memories that still haunted his dreams. "We learned that humans don't just fight wars. They fight until their enemy can never threaten them again. Complete victory or complete destruction. There is no middle ground." "But the humans seemed so peaceful," protested a representative from the gaseous collective. "They traded with us, signed treaties, followed galactic law." "Because we gave them no reason to do otherwise," the Emperor replied. "The Deep Space Fleet wasn't their military. It was a promise. As long as no one attacked those ships, humanity would remain peaceful. But if someone ever broke that promise..." He gestured weakly at the reports scattered across the council tables, each one describing the complete destruction of another world. Williams stepped forward, her diplomatic mask finally slipping to reveal something colder underneath. "For 3 centuries, we honored every treaty, followed every law, and kept the peace. We asked for nothing except to be left alone. The Deep Space Fleet operated under strict rules of engagement. They never attacked first, never conquered territory, never threatened civilians." Her voice grew harder with each word. "But you mistook our restraint for weakness. You thought our small fleet meant we were helpless. You forgot that species don't survive in a hostile universe by being weak." The chamber erupted in frightened voices as representatives realized the truth. The humans hadn't been protected by galactic law because they were weak. They had been protected because they were too dangerous to provoke. "What happens now?" asked Admiral Korthak, his crystalline body dim with fear. "Now you live with the consequences of your choice," Williams replied. "The surviving populations from the Alliance worlds are being relocated to reservation planets under human oversight. Their former territories will serve as buffer zones to prevent future incidents." "And the rest of us?" asked the Twilight Empire's representative. Nothing changes for species that didn't attack us, Williams said. We have no quarrel with you. But the old rules are gone. There is no more deep space fleet to protect you from us. She looked around the chamber at faces filled with terror and regret. From now on, every species in this galaxy will need to decide for themselves whether they want peace or war with humanity. Choose carefully, because we won't give anyone a second chance to make the right choice. Admiral Kane appeared on the main viewing screen, broadcasting from the Bridge of the Retribution as it orbited the ruins of the former Corellian homeworld. Behind him, the planet's surface glowed with the heat of recent bombardment. The lesson is complete, Kane announced. Commander Drax and his allies knew the rule. They knew the cost of breaking it. They chose to pay that price anyway. A young representative from a minor species found the courage to ask one final question: was this justice or revenge? Kane considered the question for a long moment before answering. Justice would have been leaving our colony alone. Revenge would be hunting down every member of every species that supported the attack. This was simply education. The galaxy has learned why that rule existed. As the transmission ended, the chamber remained silent. The younger civilizations finally understood what their elders had been trying to tell them. Some knowledge could only be gained through experience, and some experiences came at a price too high to pay. The rule had been simple: don't tamper with Earth's fleet. Now everyone knew why that rule had kept the peace for 300 years. And everyone knew what happened to those foolish enough to break it. The galaxy would remember this lesson for a very long time.